and this is Welcome Eats. Today we're going to be making a reverse seared tri-tip with a peppercorn sauce. Sometimes I just want a steak in the middle of the week, so this is one of my go-to weeknight meals. It satisfies that steak craving, and it's an easy, mostly hands-off recipe that's perfect to make when you come home from work. Let's take a look at the ingredients. We're going to be using a 1.5 pound tri-tip. We'll season that with salt and pepper. For the sauce, we're going to use 3/4 of a cup of homemade chicken stock, 1/4 cup of whiskey, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 shallot, 1 clove of garlic, 1/2 cup of heavy cream, and then some whole peppercorns that we are going to crush with the mortar and pestle to get 3 teaspoons. So this is a tri-tip cut, and this tri-tip is a little bit smaller than most tri-tips. Normally it's almost L-shaped, it comes out in a little point like this. So I like to look at my meat when it's raw and look for the grains. The grains are easier to see when it's raw versus when it's cooked. So we can see the grains are running this way. And the reason that's important is because we're gonna cut our meat perpendicular to the grains. So like this, against the grain. If we were to cut with the grain like this, then our meat will be a lot more tough and chewy. So the first step is we're gonna salt our meat. So we'll take our kosher salt and liberally salt the tri-tip all over. Get it nice and salty. Don't be stingy with your seasoning. This salt is going to penetrate the meat's surface and extract all that moisture. And we want a really dry tri-tip surface, so when we sear it, we get a nice, good, crispy sear on top of that. So salt this all over. Make sure you get the sides as well. Okay, so now we're gonna put it on our baking rack. And we're gonna leave it out for an hour so it can come up to room temperature and the salt can penetrate the surface like I was talking about. You could even salt the tri-tip the night before and leave it uncovered in your fridge so that salt has even more time to extract all that moisture. So our meat has been sitting for about an hour, so it's up to room temperature now, which is important for a more even cook. As you can see, the salt has penetrated that surface and extracted all that moisture, so it's really wet. We're gonna blot that down with a paper towel because we want it to be dry. This ensures that we get a good crispy crust on the surface. Okay, so it's dry. Now we're gonna add a little bit more salt. Again, like I said, don't be afraid of seasoning. This is a really big piece of meat. And then we're also gonna put some ground pepper on it. So I personally think that reverse searing is the best method for any thick cut steak or roast. And there's 3 reasons why I believe that. So number 1 is more even cooking. If you've ever cut into a tri-tip and it's been perfectly medium rare in the center, but has this thick gray band of overcooked meat, that's because it was cooked at a higher temperature. If the pan or the oven is really hot, the outside of the meat is gonna cook way faster than the middle. That's why we put it in the oven at a low temperature, and it's gonna be perfectly medium rare throughout. So number 2 is more even browning. This has everything to do with the Maillard reaction. I won't go into all the details of it, but basically it's this complicated chemical process that involves adding just the right amount of time, heat, and moisture to the proteins and sugars in your food, and that will develop new flavors and aromas and makes you just want to dig into that steak or chug a beer. The low heat is going to just extract all that moisture and create a really dry surface, so when we sear the meat in a really hot pan, it's gonna start browning almost instantly. We don't have to sear it for very long to get that good crispy crust, so we won't have any overcooked meat. And lastly, guys, it's way easier and more forgiving. When you cook it at a high heat, you have to take the meat out the second that it reaches the temperature you want, otherwise it's gonna be overcooked. When you cook it low, it cooks more slowly, you have more time before the meat becomes overcooked. Our meat is ready to be put in the oven. We're using a roasting pan with a roasting rack. We preheated our oven to 250, so now this will go in the oven. So it's gonna take about 45 minutes to an hour per pound for medium rare. While our tri-tip is in the oven, we're gonna make our sauce. We'll first start by finely dicing our shallot. Now, there is one disadvantage to reverse searing our tri-tip. Since we aren't searing it in the pan first, we don't have all those stuck-on bits called fond in the pan, so we're starting out with a clean pan. But don't worry, our sauce is gonna be fantastic. You won't even notice. Shallot is diced. Let's crush our peppercorns. Just dump your peppercorns into the mortar and use the pestle to crush them. Really get in there. Crush those peppercorns up, use some muscle. This is a good job for a sous chef, because it's not fun. Right, our peppercorns are crushed. Pour them in this plate. You don't want them super finely ground, just coarsely crushed. Let's turn on our stove to medium heat. Let the pan heat up a bit. Put in your butter. Let that melt. Using our bench scraper, put in your shallots. Take out your microplane and grate your garlic in there. All right, we're gonna let that saute until the shallots are softened. Our shallots are softened and translucent. We're gonna add in our whiskey and flambe it to cook off all the alcohol. All right, we ready? Pour in your alcohol. Tilt the pan and flambe it. Ooh, that flame. All right, let it cook off. All right, that was fun. Let's add in our chicken stock. Pour that in. And bring it up to a simmer, so you may need to turn up your heat a little bit. Now, if you didn't want to flambe the alcohol like that, because it can be dangerous, be very careful. Have a lid nearby, so if it gets too out of control, just set the lid on and it will put the flame out. But if you didn't want to do that, you can just cook off the alcohol for about a minute, let it simmer. Our sauce is now simmering. We're gonna add our cream and our peppercorns. Pour the cream. Okay. And we'll add in about 3 teaspoons, depending on how spicy and peppery you want your sauce. Give that a stir, and we're gonna let that reduce now. Just let it simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. We're gonna taste our sauce to see if it needs more pepper or salt. Okay, we're gonna add a little bit more pepper. And then this doesn't have any salt in it right now, so it definitely needs salt. Add some kosher salt. Give it a stir. Now remember, when the sauce reduces, the flavors concentrate. So in this stage, you don't want to over salt it. Be a little bit more conservative with your seasoning. Okay, that's good for now. Our sauce is ready now, and the way you know is when you run your wooden spoon through the sauce, it leaves a trail like that. Let's taste it one more time. All right, it's perfect. I'm We're gonna pour it into our gravy boat. Our sauce is done. We'll put it off to the side and get ready to sear off our steak. Our tri-tip has been in the oven for about 50 minutes. I like my meat cooked on the rare to medium rare side, so I took it out when the temperature was 115 degrees. Now it's gonna continue to cook about 10 to 15 degrees more, so the final temp will be about 125 to 130. Now we're gonna let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes before we sear it off. Our tri-tip has rested, now we're gonna sear it so it's not gray anymore, it has this nice crispy crust. So turn on your pan to about medium high. We wanna get this pan smoking hot. Our pan is hot, we're gonna add a couple of tablespoons of a neutral oil, like canola oil. It has a higher smoke point, so you can get your pan way hotter before it starts burning. Listen to that sizzle. Now we're gonna flip it. Look at that nice crispy crust on that. We're gonna add our butter in now and baste it. Whoa. Whoops, don't do that. All right, let your butter melt around. And as soon as it's melted a bit, we're gonna tilt the pan, get that nice butter, and just pour it over the meat and baste it. It's gonna continue to brown, get nice and crispy crust. We're gonna flip it over and baste the other side. Hold it up and get all the sides just for a few seconds. All right, take out our tri-tip, just set it on your cutting board. Because it already rested, we can slice right into it. All right, let's slice it up. So we can see the grains are going this way, so we're gonna wanna cut it perpendicular. All right, let's give it a slice. Nice and juicy. Look at that center. There's a little bit of the gray band like I talked about, but it's pretty much just red throughout. Now this is definitely more on the rare side, which I personally like my tri-tip. However, again, if you like it more medium rare or more medium, just leave it in the oven for a bit longer. This looks super juicy, looks amazing, but can't forget about the dogs. I'm gonna go ahead and slice it up, and this will be their little taste. Are you ready, Chauncey? Ooh, take it nicely. Oh, is that yummy? Didn't even taste it, just swallowed it. Oh. Yum. Now it's my turn to taste it. We're gonna pour some of this delicious sauce on top. Look at that, yummy. Let's go ahead and cut into this. I'll just slice this through, I want some of this sauce. This goes amazing with mashed potatoes or some crispy French fries, any kind of potato actually. Absolutely perfect. Delicious. I hope you guys enjoyed my tri-tip and peppercorn sauce. The full recipe can be found on my food blog at lagameats.com. I've got videos coming out every Thursday, so hit a like and subscribe below. I'll see you next time. Hey do!